like AIPAC spent, I think, tens of millions of dollars.
Oh, Jamal Bowman?
Jamal Bowman, yeah.
Gotcha,
They
yeah.
spent so much money. I'm like, where did he get that money?
That's an amazing question.
It's a terrific question. Like, why this one nation is able to like have an insanely large lobby.
As of today, Israel is still engaged in a war with Hamas.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
So there's October 7th, which has been almost a year since then, and that's what they say that they're.
Oh, good catch.
Against Hamas, which is a paramilitary organization that is also like kind of a governing body of the Palestine region, or the Gaza region, and also of some influence over the West Bank. I'm not terribly familiar with the West Bank, like how that goes, but it's more, West Bank's more Israeli controlled than the Gaza Strip. And so Israel invaded Gaza to root out Hamas. That's what I think the initial goal was. What it is right now, I don't know. Yeah.
Do you think Israel has achieved their goal of rooting out Hamas?
I don't know. Because like Hamas is an organization that can just kind of shift in and out of the civilian population. And so like, I don't think they've eliminated every single person who's ever been a part of Hamas or is in it. So I would say no.
So on October 7th, there was an estimated around 1,500 casualties of Israelis. Since then, there have been varying numbers, but the general estimate is about 30,000-ish Palestinians have been killed. Now, the number of that's militants and that's civilians is debated and highly contested. What do you make of those numbers?
Well, a lot are reported by like the Crescent, the Red Crescent, from what I've heard, and other sources. I mean, I think it's really hard to like completely accurately gauge numbers in terms of casualties, but it makes sense like how many people have died, because I mean the Gaza Strip's like 26 miles long and it has like 1 million people, or at least it had before the war. And so like, yeah, like there's a lot of collateral damage that just like inherently kills civilians, and that's pretty terrible. I mean, like even the bombs, the pager bombs. I mean, you might ask about that in another question. I won't get too much into it, but like that like killed children, which, you know, blurs kind of the lines of what is ethical. I don't know if anything in the war is ethical, but yeah, it doesn't seem like Israel is really concerned about separating civilian population from militant population. I don't think they see having an Arab population in kind of that area is like really a good thing. So I think they like to, I don't think they're out to kill a lot of civilians, but I don't think they mind it too much.
Go on from there. So how do you think Netanyahu has orchestrated this war? And would you call what he's doing in Gaza a genocide?
Yeah. I I do not like that guy. He's like the most Israeli of Israeli presidents. I mean, all Israeli leaders since its foundation. I mean, I've heard reports of like pretty much every president that's had to deal with an Israeli leader just like gets enraged by like how they act, because they act like they're like what's running it. Except like, in my opinion, Israel is like a vassal state. Like, they would not be a thing without us in the West, us specifically. And, you know, if you think about the Roman Empire, like Armenia was a vassal state because they wanted Roman protection from Persia, which kind of draws some parallels because Israel wants protection against Iran and like the entire Islamic world for various reasons. But you know, Armenia didn't go to Rome and like sit and ask the Caesar, hey, you know, we have, you know, like a, what he said some crazy things like, we'll defend Armenia with the last Roman soldier. Oh, like it's just stuff like that where, like, why are we letting Israel be like all like authoritative? Like, my grandma, he has a Benjamin Netanyahu's autobiography, and it's like this thick. And like, he's not even dead yet. Like, I mean, how old is he? 60s? I mean, he's 60s, he's already written that much.
So I think he was born in 1949.
Okay, so closer to like in the 70s. So, I mean, he's got a huge, thick book, and I'm like, why are we like acting like this guy has any authority over us? Like, we shouldn't have that. That's a little bit, I was a little side tangent, but
No, I'm glad you brought that up. We can talk about, so have you ever heard of AIPAC?
I have heard of AIPAC.
Do you have any strong feelings about AIPAC?
We don't have RPAC, or like for Russia. We don't have ACPAC for China. Like, we don't have any like other like foreign powers that have an insane like there's a Democratic senator from Michigan, or is it New York? I forgot his name. Is it Jalen Cole, or is that J. Cole? I forgot, but he's like a prominent voice against Israel, and like AIPAC spent, I think, tens of millions of dollars.
Oh, Jamal Bowman?
Jamal Bowman, yeah.
Gotcha,
they spent so much money. I'm like, where did he get that money?
That's an amazing question.
It's a terrific question. Like, why this one nation is able to like have an insanely large lobby that like, I listened to Thomas Massey's podcast with Tucker Carlson. Like, they have a AIPAC guy for each congressman, which is insane. And they definitely, that's where the thing is, like, Netanyahu doesn't have, you know, like direct hard power authority, but he has people that are aligned with his interests that worm their way into the system, and like they can circumvent kind of where they should be to like this huge high level where they basically have a blank check from the most powerful military in the world.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up Thomas Massey. So Thomas Massey is a congressman from Kentucky.
Yeah.
And recently was it AIPAC spent a ton of money to try to oust him.
They did.
But he was not ousted. He was a Republican, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you feel like most Republicans and Democrats are bought and sold to AIPAC? Because Thomas Massey seemed like a minority
Uh-huh.
in the way he talks about Israel.
Yeah. I mean, he is like a statistical minority. He's objectively a minority because, I mean, like Congress was waving Israeli flags around like a foreign flag in in the halls of Congress. They did that with Ukraine too. But yeah, I mean, bought and sold by AIPAC. That's part of it, and also just like the fact that it is the only Jewish state is like kind of even the people that talk about AIPAC, you know, kind of like not acknowledge the elephant in the room. And yeah, like, so I mean, I identify as conservative, and like my grandpa, my dad, all of them are pretty big Israel supporters, and like, especially like I'm from an evangelical background. I mean, we're practicing evangelical, and like they are the most like they're the useful idiots of Israel for sure. I mean, and like my relatives don't have like an AIPAC guy that they meet with. Like that, it's like
I see what you're saying.
yeah, it's grassroots. It's pretty grassroots,
Yeah.
like in terms of the general support for Israel. Even like, I bet even if AIPAC didn't exist, a lot of Congress would be pretty pro-Israel.
At least on the Republican side, from
Uh-huh.
the evangelical background.
Yeah.
Glad you brought that up. We can go on into our final question here.
Yeah.
Really, how do you see this war ending? And do you see maybe perhaps a wider war coming out of this?
Oh, dear God, I hope not. But I mean, like, what are they doing with Lebanon now? Like, I think it seems like Israel's expanding the war in Lebanon, and that's pretty bad. Like, and also Iran is scary to me because like a lot of the authoritarian powers are just operate in a very different way. Where like in Russia, like the Tucker Carlson was talking about this, like the Kremlin caught on fire, and like it was when he interviewed Putin. So this was February of this year. And he's like calling the embassy office, and he's like, or the Kremlin office, like, is there a fire here? And they're like, no. Like, you can't show weakness in an authoritarian government to an extent. Like, you have to retaliate somehow. And like, if Iran just keeps getting embarrassed by Israel, you know, fighting against Hezbollah, and like the exploding pager thing, very, very like sophisticated operation. So sophisticated it makes me wonder like how October 7th happened. But
that's a good question.
it is.
That's an amazing question.
It's an amazing question. But yeah, and so like that's really embarrassing if you're the kind of the architect of a lot of these organizations that would not exist if Israel did not exist. And so like I feel like we're backing a rat into a corner, and it will bear its fangs.
Okay.
And like I'm 20. I don't want to get drafted and die for Israel because Israel got too big for their britches and tried to, you know, cause a huge war. Because I feel like Israel thinks itself is safest when when more Americans are in the Middle East. I mean, like, a ton of Israeli intelligence and a lot of people sympathetic to Israel were also big proponents of the Iraq invasion. And so, like, I mean, Iraq was not a big fan of Israel. Saddam Hussein was not a big fan of Israel. And so, like, if they took out a country, I think Iraq, I don't think it directly borders Israel, but I mean, it's one Syria away, and Syria, there's a lot of, I mean, it's just like, they obviously have a really good intelligence apparatus domestically in here. There was a Mossad agent that was in jail because we caught him like stealing state secrets, and then Benjamin Netanyahu just said, "Please give him back." For like no, like, does Guatemala spy on us? Does I mean, do we like see any French people going, "Oh, I steal your documents," But it feels like Israel just can kind of do what they want in our intelligence space without any repercussion, really. And that's scary when intelligence has been driving a lot of like what decisions we make to go to war, right? Like Iraq was all about weapons of mass destruction, and that was super intelligent. So everybody was very intelligent and knew that they were developing weapons of mass destruction. We had to go and get Saddam Hussein out. And so, it's Israel is like the kind of friend that you don't like. Who needs enemies if you have Israel as now?
So you identified as a conservative.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel as though Donald Trump is using rhetoric around Israel that you would like to hear? Do you feel like he's supporting Israel too much?
I don't really know. I mean, so he moved the embassy from Tel Aviv into Jerusalem, which I think he said like, "I'm the most pro-Israel president there's ever been," and I mean I think a lot of his, I think Ivanka Trump converted to Judaism, and like. Jared Kushner, that's her husband, and like there's a lot of Jewish in-laws that Trump has, and he's like a New York real estate tycoon, and so like I feel like he's got a lot of sympathies for the Jewish people that he probably doesn't have for Arabs, and that's where the money is. There's like virtually no incentive to not support Israel with all your heart and might at the executive level. Like it's just a no-brainer. And so like in terms of like Thomas Massey's never going to be president. He's a congressman.
Would you like to see that ticket?
I really liked his interview. Like he seems like a genuine guy. I don't know if he is, but I do like him. But, just in terms of the presidential level, Israel's just like, it's like Social Security. It's like any of these, just no-brainer. You support this no matter what you feel, because if you don't, you're just going to lose. And so I like him to be different, but it's just like asking for, a genie wish to something just out of the blue.
Do you really see any difference between policies of the current administration and what a Trump administration would do?
I feel like Biden won because of COVID. It was like a Deus Ex Machina situation where I think he really would have lost if that crisis didn't happen. And I think conversely, like the Palestine stuff, Ukraine war stuff, I think Trump would have pretty much been the same. I think he might have pushed for peace talks in Ukraine, but in terms of Israel, like if he was a second term president right now, people would be chanting genocide Donald or whatever. And so I think it's a uniparty system when it comes to Israeli foreign policy and pretty much foreign policy in general.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's some really good insight. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you.
Could you do the Trump hands again?